Hey, what's up, OGs and converts? This is the Leafs Convo in video. Mike in Buffalo, Norm in London. Hi, Mike. The Leafs red hot, the number one team in the Canadian division and the entire NHL. Reading on social media today, there's some skepticism over just how good the Leafs are when you compare them to their American counterparts, and the fact that the Leafs are playing against six teams, drubbing them big time. And if they were to venture into the United States, the record might not be so flattering. What do you think of that, Mike?
Of course, there's criticism of the Northern Division because the Leafs are leading. If Edmonton was leading it, or if Winnipeg was leading it, that's a fantastically tough division. But I just have this weird feeling it's because Toronto is leading it. They can't be that good if Toronto is leading it.
Yeah.
But I also think the Stanley Cup champion is Tampa Bay. Washington, Boston, the Islanders are all having success. I mean, when you have one division of 7 and then 3 divisions of 8. I mean, it's 75% of the league in the lower 48. You assume that they think that the best teams are there. Plus, they haven't, they've won Stanley Cups every year since 1993. So, I get that, but I just think that right now maybe the North Division is the better offensive division because McDavid, Draisaitl, Marner, Matthews all in the top 5 scoring. So I think it's a great division. I think it's entertaining, although I have seen some people say they're already sick of just Canada versus Canada all the time. Yeah. And I think a lot of people will be happy to go back to the other divisions next year.
I'm in that camp, Mike. I hate to see the same thing on repeat, but this is how it's going to be while we're in this pandemic. So we have to make the most of it. What's the alternative? Not playing at all. The last 3 games, the Leafs have given up 1 goal. I mean, just outscoring the Oilers like 13-1. I mean, the Oilers have their issues. What I'm liking about the Leafs game right now, aside from their offensive prowess, which we knew was going to be there, this commitment to defense, and we talked about this on previous combos, having the solidification of the group through veterans like TJ Brody and Zach Bogosian, obviously Jake Muzzin coming into his own. Morgan Riley, he walks a fine line between being an offenseman and a defenseman. But this is really, really nice to see, especially when, there's a bit of a revolving door between the pipes.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned this on the last convo, is the fact that this is sort of the model that Pat Quinn put together in the early 2000s, where you had your core group, you had your Matt Sundins and your Caberlets and your McCabe's, but they surrounded that team. They added the Corsons and the Roberts and the Neuendijks, and they acquired Brian Leach and Ron Francis. They brought in these grizzled veterans to be support players who had been stars earlier in their careers. And I think you've seen that with Simmons, you've seen that with Thornton and Spezza. And I think on a regular basis, I mean, Spezza has 3 assists last night against the Oilers. I mean, they're really stepping up in these limited roles, and these young players respect these players for what they've done because they've watched them since they were kids playing, Thornton and Spezza. And I think this is a formula with that core group, the 3 $10 million or $11 million players in Marner, Matthews, and Tavares. You're going to have to be able to find veteran guys who will take minimum to come in and be support players. And I think that the success that they're having right now is something that Kyle Dubas is going to sort of follow over the next few years. I mean, if Thornton retires or Spezza retires, then there are going to be other veterans that will be willing to come in for $700K and have a chance to win a Stanley Cup. So that might be a winning formula, and I think it's working right now.
This is the Leafs Combo. Up close and personal. We're adding some video to the mix, a bit of a maiden voyage, so bear with us if it's not perfect. We are going to get there. You can also talk about Mike and I's beards. Who has the nicer facial hair? Mike's been around a lot longer, so he's had a chance to grow his out in a more meaningful way. Michael Granlund and Eric Stahl. If you had to pick from one of the two, and I'm not saying these are the guys Kyle Dubas has in his sights to bring in and try to improve the top 6, but we've been talking about them, and those names have been bandied about. If you had to go with the veteran versus someone who may work well with the William Nylander, have more of a skill guy, A bit younger. Who would you take, especially in this moment right now?
I see. I'm skeptical about what Granlund brings. I don't. He's not an overly tough player. I mean, he's a good player. He's had success in his career in Minnesota, less so in Nashville. I was surprised he went back to the Predators. He's mostly a left winger, and I think they're looking at a top 6 left winger that could play with Tavares and Nylander or Tavares and Marner if they mix things up. And he's not a bad player, and depends on what they would have to give up. Depends on how much salary that Nashville would retain. I think Stahl. I mean, Stahl's played wing. He's played center. He's playing second line center with the Sabres. The Sabres are brutal. I'm sure he wants to get out of there. Sure. I don't know if this is the last year of his career or if he is going to sign a free agent deal someplace else. But having an opportunity to play for a team that's going to play in the playoffs might be welcome for Eric Stahl. And he's not a pushover. He's a big guy. He doesn't play an overly tough game, but like Joe Thornton, he's a big body, and big bodies I think have a different effect on a game than a smaller, speedy guy does. I personally think they need more of another Wayne Simmons type, another physical player who could play second, third line. It doesn't seem like that's what Dubas is going for, but depending on the availability and depending on the price, I would rather go with Stahl than Granlund, but there might be others out there that are a better fit to what I think they need.
Off the top of your head, and not to put you on the spot, any names?
Well, if it wasn't for salary, a guy like Nick Foligno would be, but Nick Foligno is captain in Columbus. He apparently likes it in Columbus. He's a UFA. So maybe he's a rental type of situation, but I think he's going to stay there. I don't think they're going to uproot him and trade him. There's a couple others. I mean, and Nick Cousins, he played for Dubas and Keefe and Sault Ste. Marie, and he's sort of that, middle of the lineup, maybe fourth line physical guy. Lawson Krause, not so much. He's like a fourth liner, but if Marcus Foligno was a rental, that would be the perfect guy. He's a third line guy. He's big. He's tough. He hits people. But he just signed an extension. So I'm looking for that type of player, and there might be that type of player in free agency, or that is going to be a rental before the deadline.
Yeah, you associate impact players with the top 6. So if we're expecting the top 6 to be improved, you're going to have to bring in an impact player. That could cost. We shall see how it all plays out. It's funny, we're not talking about improving the defensive group. To go back to the defense and the way the team has been playing, typically in years past, we get to trade deadline time and we need another top 4 defenseman. We need somebody with more, who plays with sandpaper, stay at home, stalwart type. We're not having that conversation right now. Mike, do you think because things look so good on the defensive end of things right now, it might be a little bit smoke and mirrors, and we should probably consider, going back to that original conversation and doing whatever the team can to improve the defensive group?
I don't think that they're going to mess with success unless there's an injury. They have Lettinen as a 7th defenseman. If there's a couple injuries. Rasmus Sandin is out right now, but Timothy Liljegren was moved up to the taxi squad and played well with the Marlies. So, maybe he would fill in. If it's somebody that is on a contract that is very affordable and he's just a spare part and somebody who could step in, I think that they would do that. But I also think, I don't think they're going to spend tangible assets to get another defenseman, because I think right now they're not loaded on D, but I think they're happy with what they have. And only if they have to, trade Dermott or trade a Liljegren or trade somebody in the deal to get the forward, would I think they would address adding another defenseman. I think they're going to stick with what they got. And I think what they want to do is really improve the depth up front, then in case they have a couple injuries. And we know in the playoffs, there's always injuries. So, if in case there's an injury to somebody, they have the flexibility to move things around and still maintain their firepower.
Yeah, we're not even halfway through the shortened season, so there's still a lot that can happen between now and Game 56, and then, of course, the endeavor into the playoffs.